Ranger Week in the Paper Crafters Library blog, and we're focusing on Tim Holtz distress stains. Every day this week we'll share a different technique using the stains, and each day we'll also be giving away a set of 12 distress stains generously donated by Ranger. We'll share details on how to enter at the end of this video. As I shared with you in the introductory video, distress stains are a fluid version of distress inks, and they were created in order to provide quick and easy coverage of backgrounds and large areas. In today's video, I'm going to share a quick and easy background technique using distress stains that you can incorporate into your projects. Now, if you watched the introductory video to distress stains, you would have seen me cover this stamped tag using the distress stain to create this beautiful colored background. Now, today's technique is a variation on this in which I incorporate a few more products from both Tim Holtz and Ranger. I'm going to be using this Tim Holtz Ideology tissue wrap. Absolutely love this stuff. It's very much like tissue paper, except as you can see here, it's on a roll, and then there's this perforated edge so you can tear it off. And I'm also going to be using some of the Ranger Manila cardstock in the 8.5 by 11 inch size. Now, the technique I'm going to show you is working on a card size background, but later in the video I'll show you how you can use the same technique on a larger surface area and for other types of projects. So I've cut my Manila cardstock down to 3.5 by 4 3/4, and then I cut a piece of tissue paper that was slightly bigger. I just wanted it to be somewhere between 3/4 of an inch to an inch larger all around so that I could wrap the edges around to the back of my Manila cardstock. To do that, I'm going to be using the Ranger product, Claudine Helmuth Studio Multi-Medium Matte. Absolutely love this stuff too. I use it all the time in my mixed media and my canvases, my art journals. Anytime I have to do any kind of collage, decoupage, this is my go-to medium. So I'm just going to brush a layer of it over the surface of my Manila cardstock piece. And then I'm going to take my tissue paper and lay it over it. So now that this is dry, I'm going to wrap the edges of my tissue paper around to the back. So I'm flipping it over, and I'm going to start with the corner. So I'm going to place some medium in the corner, and then I'm going to fold that corner over. So I'm going to follow the same process for the remaining 3 corners. So once that's done, I'm now ready to fold the sides over. So the reason I started by folding the corners over like this is simply because it just gives me a nice crisp corner on the other side. So when I flip it over, you'll notice that. So I'm just now placing my medium along one side, and then I'm taking the edge of the tissue wrap and folding it over, kind of like I'm wrapping a present. So then using that same method, I'm going to do the remaining 3 sides. So there you can see what my piece now looks like with all 4 sides sealed, and it's completely dry, and we're ready now to move on to adding our distress stain. So I'm only using one color of stain for this. I'm going to be working with my Ranger Broken China, or my Distress the Broken China color. And as you can see in looking at the top of my dabber bottle, I've already gone ahead and primed it. So to apply it, now all I have to do is to flip my bottle upside down and then press it to my surface and run it back and forth. And you can see that as I'm doing that, the color is starting to absorb into the tissue paper. Now the key to this particular technique is that you cannot put the medium or any kind of decoupage, collage type medium on top of the tissue paper. Distress stains are designed to work on porous surfaces, and the medium, when it dries, is no longer porous. So if you were to have coated this with medium, then you're not going to be able to get the same kind of intensity of color. It does work because I have tried it, but you get a much lighter color. So what I'm doing, because distress stains are translucent, meaning you can see through them to whatever's beneath, I am just continuing to apply layers of the broken china, and each time I add a layer, as you can see, what happens is that my color becomes more saturated, so it looks more intense. So whenever you're working with distress stains, anytime you're applying them onto your surface, the more layers you apply, the more saturated your color is going to be. So you just rub it over your background until you achieve your desired depth of color. And then afterwards, so now that that's done, I'm just going to take my heat tool and I'm going to heat that. So using my heat tool, I've now dried my piece. Now you can leave it like that because you see you've got this beautiful background color and you can see the pattern of the tissue paper underneath, or you can add more to it by stamping. And that's something that I like to do because I find it adds extra visual interest, extra depth, dimension, and texture. The more layers you add to your project, the more interesting it becomes to look at to the viewer. So I'm taking my Distress ink. This is my Vintage Photo, I believe. Yes, it's my Vintage Photo Distress ink. And I'm patting it all over one of Tim Holtz background stamps. And I'm not sure which one this is because I got it at a Ranger workshop at CHA. So I don't know what the name was. It just came like this. And then I'm going to stamp it on top of my background. Now, it's key when you're using the distress inks that you stamp after you've put the distress stain on, because distress inks are also water-based like the distress stain. And if we were to have stamped to this first, when you apply the distress stain and you saw how much we applied, your color would have run. So there you can see we've added this very pretty background to this, and it just makes it look that much more interesting. So now that I've shown you how easy it is to create this background effect, I wanted to show you a couple of other ways and project types that it can be applied to. Here you can see this is an art journal page I created in my art journal, and this is a Moleskine book, and I've used my matte medium to stick several pages together. And then what I did was, using my matte medium in the same way that I showed you with today's background technique, I applied the tissue paper to the entire surface of my page. I then applied my broken china distress stain to the top to create the sky effect, and then I used I think it was a combination of shabby shutters and peeled paint to get this green at the bottom. And then of course I added a whole bunch of other things on top. I did stamping, and I added a little bit of other mediums in the Perfect Pearls Mist, so a bunch of things to get this finished journal page. Now here you can see an example of this technique applied to this canvas wall art. This was a project that we created at the Ranger workshop at CHA, and my canvases were covered with that tissue paper. Here you can see how it was folded over the edge, and then a very light distress stain was applied on top. I think it was the antique linen that we used, and then did some additional sponging with distress inks. But you can see it's the same process that I showed you, it just doesn't have the overstamping like I used. Now here's an example of how I took my background and incorporated into an actual card. Now, in addition to the background technique with the distress stain, I also used distress markers on the Ranger specialty stamping paper to create these beautifully vibrant butterflies. And I have a video on how to create this card from start to finish in Paper Crafters Library for our members. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's technique, and if you're looking for more great ideas using distress stains, over the course of Ranger Week on Paper Crafters Library, we'll be focusing on a whole range of different techniques featuring distress stains. Also, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, each day this week, Monday to Friday, we're giving away the set of 12 distress stains you see pictured here, compliments of Ranger. To enter to win, all you have to do is visit the Paper Crafters Library blog and leave a comment in the post you see here. If you're watching this video on YouTube, you'll find a direct link to this post in the video description section. While you're there, we invite you to check out the benefits of becoming a Paper Crafters Library member by clicking on the Benefit of Membership link at the top of our blog. Now, all 5 winners will be announced on our blog on Friday, April the 20th at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. See you on the blog!